Okay, so last night I started reading a book that I'd had for a while, and I wanted to start reading it. It's called The Island of the Day Before. It's by Umberto Eco. He also is the author of Foucault's Pendulum and The Name of the Rose. And I'd had a couple of drinks, and I was relaxed, and I was ready to go to sleep, and I thought, I'll get a couple of pages started so that I can read it at work tomorrow and already be hooked on the book. I didn't find it very good. I didn't find it very interesting. I found it to just be standard fare. But I reread it today at work, and it turns out that you really can't read Umberto Eco after having any amount of drinks. The sort of dry cerebral terror and vivid descriptiveness, and it fails to hit you quite the right way. So, it does look like an interesting book. It also reminds me of how terrifying Foucault's Pendulum was, and how much it just gets inside your head. And so I'm looking forward to a mind trip, sort of a Neon Genesis Evangelion type mind trip, where you suffer mentally, and you know your ideas about the world are being raked across the coals, but you feel like you're better for it. There was a segue. I had thought of a segue, and now I've completely forgotten it. What was my segue? Something to do with the brain. It wasn't even really a segue. The weather. You see, I could have made up a new segue. Police and cops need to return to speed limit, or need to return to reasonable speed above the speed limit. I could have made up a new segue just on the spot between Umberto Eco and the topic I wanted to talk about, but the one that I wanted to talk about, which is actually a weaker segue, is it's nice. The weather is really nice today. It's like the weather in heaven. It's like the weather in the nice part of heaven, which is funny because, nobody thinks about heaven having a night, but there would be. If heaven were real, there'd be that street you don't really want to go down because it's the people who barely made it there. Skin of their teeth. They're like, oh, come on, we've been out having a good time, and now, yeah, I know it's the fastest way, but let's go around. Let's take a chair and go around. Something. But anyway, fictions don't have to have realities like that appended to them. What I wanted to talk about was, and this is the weakest segue and most rambling segue I now realize, I wanted to talk about why I don't believe that anything happens to you after death. For a long time, humanity believed this almost entirely. Not all the people believed that there was a heaven of a certain kind. Some believed in reincarnation. Some believed in a sort of dissolution, but into a spirit world, or into a global spirit, a world spirit, sort of returning to nature. Not all of you is lost, but most of you is gone. They're probably closest to the most honest answers, the ancestor worshippers, and those grow into legitimate religions of their own, but probably closest to the most honest answers were the ones that believe that, you just dissolved into the elements that came before, and you were only existed in some sort of connection with your descendants, which in some sense is true. Your genetic actions and your even decisions can sometimes influence the lives of people that come after you. But I just want to propound one really basic fact that seems to me the best of all possible arguments against heaven. And it's a fact based on science. So, what we have is, in heaven, we have some reason to believe that we're alive after our bodies stop functioning. So basically, this comes to the question of the soul. Now, the soul, what is the soul? There is no answer to that question. This isn't the time, I didn't just ask that to define terms. There is no answer to what is the soul, because it's basically like God. just a collection of the mysteries about humanity. If we don't understand how consciousness works, attributed to the soul. We didn't understand how the heart worked, attributed to the soul. If we didn't understand how the body's limbs moved, or when decisions were made, attributed to the soul. Some of these things we have answers for, just like we have a lot of things that were thought to be attributable to God that we now have answers for. We know how the muscles work. We know how decisions are made. Some mysteries remain, but I think in the end it's the same exact kind of thing. The soul is like God. It's just a collection of mysteries. There's no reality to it, and there's no formal unity to it, because all of these mysteries have their own answers in their own right, and they're more than likely going to be material answers. So without bothering to define the soul and then prove whether that's possible or not, I just want to look at this trend and have it try to explain. I would like for it to be explained to me how you make this leap, and I say that rhetorically because I don't think you can make this leap, where a person is functioning mentally, and then the person's mind is functioning, his brain is functioning. Basically there's a one-to-one correspondence between what was going on in your brain and your body and what goes on with your life. And what the soul tries to do is say that there is some other correspondence, that your life continues after your brain and your body stop to function correctly. But this flies in the face of everything that we see. We see a person starting to eat healthier, or recover from a sickness, and you see their health, their life improve. Their vitality improve. Their what would be called their soulfulness improve. Their spiritual presence improve. You see someone who's sick and dying, their soul seems to be quaking and wavering, And as their body decreases, and you can do measurable tests to show that things are going wrong with their body, they're aging, things are falling apart, they're hemorrhaging here, this treatment is working there, it isn't working here. These measurable facts can be correspond to changes in a person. So basically you end up with a chart where you have, function, body function, and soul function, or whatever we want to call soulfulness. And the higher the body function is, the higher the soul function is. So, we get to the high over here. So, and as both of them decrease, they continue to decrease equally, roughly equally. And then the claim of life after death is that everything keeps decreasing, and then suddenly it's all the way back up to the top. You have complete function of soul back at the end, completely inexplicably, and completely contrary to everything that's observable. And I think if you can dismiss for a moment the idea that human life isn't valuable without a soul, because it is valuable without a soul, human life is valuable, and we're going to find a reason to say it's valuable. Human life is valuable is a principle, it's a moral principle, and we don't need to back that up with junk beliefs. We can back that up in a number of other ways. And happiness can be achieved without a soul. These things, so if you take out these moral imperatives, sorry, just checking that I didn't get a text which would stop my phone from recording, but if you take out the moral imperatives that say that give you a reason to want to keep the soul around, I think you end up looking very much like having no reason to believe in the soul whatsoever. And so that's my conclusion. I think that this very basic principle, just stated sort of shortly, is that we see a very close correlation between decline in body function and decline in mental or spiritual presence. And what belief in the soul asks you to do is a complete reversal of everything that you've observed. It's not just that there's no evidence for it. It's completely opposite of everything that there is evidence for. And it is unfortunate that people don't live forever, but that might itself be unfortunate. I mean, I'd like to live 100,000 years. That'd be fun. But I think the consequences of that they might be unfortunate in their own way. And they might really be. So, ultimately, it just comes down to the question, though, not of what you want, but of what is. I may want to live 100,000 years, but that doesn't mean I'm going to. And that may sound obvious. That may sound very laughably obvious, but I'd like to point out something that one of my theist friends had said. He said, this other friend of mine, he's really afraid of death. And I thought, after that conversation, quite a bit later, I thought to myself, well, that's really an unfair accusation to level, because you believe that you're not going to die. You believe that you're going to suffer a bit, pass away, but then immediately be restored. And at least from your perspective, it's immediate. So you don't really believe you're going to die. You're kind of avoiding the question of death by believing that it's never going to really apply to you in any meaningful way. So I guess what I'm saying is, it may sound stupid to hear me say, oh, I don't really think I'm going to live forever, even though I want to. Well, every Christian believes that. Every Christian believes they're going to live forever. Even if they go to hell, they think they're living forever. I mean, some of them would think that they get annihilated instead of going to hell. But most of them believe that they are living forever. And that they're not going to die. Because death is really, it's an end. Death is the end. That's the last page. If there's a whole other chapter after death, it's not really death. Hence the Christian claim, death wears your sting. There's no sting to death. You're doping your mind with the drug of a lie into not being afraid of something. That you maybe should face the reality of your own mortality. Anyway, peace.